Hello and welcome to a webinar on online learning. This is intended to help our students navigate the changes from a traditional classroom environment to an online environment. We know that it's challenging and we want to try to give some tips and tricks and just let you know that we're here to support you. So who's talking to you today? My name is Nicole Winget. I am an international board member at large. I joined Phi Alpha Delta when I was a law student at Ohio Northern University, so Willis chapter. I am now a member of the Triangle Area Alumni chapter. I reside in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And my main job is Assistant Dean for Adult and Online Education, which puts me in a unique position to be able to speak to some of the challenges that online learners face and how we deal with them in the Adult and Online Education division. I'm also a professor of Homeland Security and Criminal Justice, and so I teach both in the traditional seated classroom environment as well as in the 100% online environment. I also teach what we call blended, where most of the class is online, but some of it's in the classroom as well. So I'm able to speak from a position of teaching in all the environments, and we had to switch at Campbell University from being a traditional format to 100% online. So I'm helping our students navigate those challenges as well, and hopefully some of the tips that I give them will be helpful for you as well. Thank you to everyone who was able to take the survey discussing some of the challenges that you're facing, and we use that survey to help guide this discussion. And so some of the things we're going to talk about today are focus and motivation, how to communicate with faculty, the actual learning part, how are you actually absorbing the material, some helpful apps and websites that I use, some closing tips or some tips that I give all my students. They're things we've all heard a million times, but they really do matter, and then some closing comments. So one of the biggest challenges that I think every single person is facing right now, and that is students, faculty, anyone, is focus and motivation. This is we'll just say it, a crazy time. And trying to be able to stay focused and motivated is hard when you are maybe stuck at home, or you don't have a home office area, so you're trying to work from your couch and you've got your family members and a million other things going on. Not to mention we're all worrying about the state of affairs right now. There's a lot going on. So staying focused and motivated is hard. So here's some of the tips that I use and I share with my students. The first thing, it's termed Eat the Frog. So I want you to every morning pick the biggest, nastiest task you have to do and do that first. Because once you have done that, once you have eaten the frog, the hardest thing you have to do that day, the rest of the day can be a little bit easier. So try to think of that, try to tackle that thing first off, eating the frog. Along with that, you want to set your big three. So pick 3 goals, and these 3 goals can include your Eat the Frog goal that you want to accomplish that day. 3 things that if you get them done, you can end the day and say, I got done what I needed to do. So I use a book, a physical planner where I write this stuff. And I'll show you a picture of my day planner later in the presentation. But I write out my big 3. And in fact, the number 1 thing is shaded a little bit of a different color, and that's my Eat the Frog thing. So it's just a good way to keep yourself focused and make sure that you're accomplishing what you need. This part is super important. You have to structure your day, and as part of that structure, you have to structure in breaks. There's a technique called the Pomodoro technique where you work for 25 minutes and you take a 5-minute break, and you just stay on that structure the whole day. Halfway through the day you take a longer break or a lunch break, but in general it's 25 on, 5 off. I use 45 on, 15 off, because that's what works for my brain. And you'll see on the screen a little screenshot of one of the apps I use to time this. And I have my work goals every day and how many cycles of this I'm going to do each day. And I do 4 cycles of 45, 15, and then I give myself a half-hour break, and I just rotate through that my whole day. Along with that, you need to set boundaries for yourself. You need to have a start time every day, and you need to have a stop time every day. When you're not traveling, when you're not having to drive to school and sit in classes or go to work, it's very easy to start at first thing in the morning with your nose in your computer and stay with your nose in the computer the whole day, and you'll burn yourself out. I learned this the hard way, even as someone who's familiar with the online environment. I'm used to going to an office every day, so the first week that we were at home, I was starting at 5 or 6 in the morning, and then before I knew it, it was 9 or 10 at night, and I was still working. And by about day 5, I was grumpy, I was not productive, I was not motivated, and I had to give myself that structure where there's a start time and a stop time, and I live by that. And that leads into my next point, which the only option is to turn right. And I learned this lesson from a endurance event that I did. This event included basically you climbed a mountain up to 13 times, and that simulated climbing Kilimanjaro. And the person who runs this event, Jesse Itzler, some of you might have heard of him. He's an endurance athlete and a motivational speaker. What happened is when you got off the gondola that took you out of the bottom of the mountain, you could do two things. You could turn left and go to your tent and go to bed, or you could turn right and just start climbing that mountain again. And what he told us, and it really worked, is that you have to keep in your brain that the only option you have is to turn right. And how that applies to you is that when you start your day, when you say your schedule is going to be 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. or whatever your schedule is going to be, in your brain, you have to remind yourself that the only option you have is to stick to that schedule. You turn right every day, and it'll help motivate you, maybe just a little. So the only option is to turn right, and I want you to keep that in your mind. And finally, be where your feet are. We've probably all heard the concept of mindfulness, how we need to stay in the moment and appreciate what we're doing at the moment. And that's very true in this case. It's very easy to get distracted right now. So if you find yourself flitting around, I saw a meme yesterday that said something about how I need to clean my ceilings because that's more important than whatever I actually need to work on. Make sure that what you're doing is advancing you, is moving you forward, and that you're paying attention to where your feet are and not worrying too much about what's happening tomorrow, next week, the week after that. And focus and motivation, there's no magic potion for this. You're going to have days where it's a struggle to get up off your couch. You're going to have other days where you feel like you can rule the world. So just keep in mind your only option is to turn right and stay on that schedule and focus. Another issue I know a lot of students are having is your faculty. And not that they're trying to be problematic, but for those of us who are used to traditional seated education, it is hard to quickly pivot to online. At Campbell University, we have a whole training program that you have to take before you can teach an online class because we understand how different it is. So your professors are most likely, many of them, adjusting to the changes and having some of the same problems that you are having. So here's my tips as a faculty member. Communicate early and often. And document your communications. I prefer email because I can track it, and it's very easy for me to see when somebody's emailed me and keep track of that stuff. But communicate. Let them know if you are struggling. Not all of them are going to be empathetic, but most of them are. But by communicating and documenting your communications, when you're having problems, if your internet goes out or your computer breaks, however you need to get it done, document it and communicate it with your faculty. My rule is the 48-hour rule with my students. If you email me, I ask that you give me 48 hours to respond. And if I don't respond within those 48 hours, then email me again or text me. I do let my students text me. But be careful about inundating your faculty with emails multiple times a day. And I know that somewhat contradicts the early and often. What I mean by that is don't just keep resending the same thing. Give your instructor some time to respond. your instructors might have different ground rules. Some will respond within 24 hours. Whatever your instructor's ground rules are, try to follow them. And respect the fact that they're probably getting 1,000 emails as well, but follow up with them. So it's a balance between communicating enough and not being unreasonable in needing a response. Don't ostrich. And what I mean by this is don't stick your head in the sand and think that a problem is going to go away. If you are having issues, communicate them. Most faculty want to help you and are here to serve the student, but they need to know that you need the help. And then meet your faculty where they are. Please remember they're having some of the same struggles right now, and have some grace for them. If they prefer text messaging over phone calls, try to communicate with them that way. If they prefer phone calls over text messaging, try to communicate back. And this is the same advice I give faculty. They need to meet you where you are, but it's a balance. We all need to work together. But communication, and document your communications. And if a faculty member is being unreasonable, there comes a point where it's okay to go to a department chair. Part of my job is dealing with student complaints, and we're here to try to navigate that situation. And if you have been reasonable, you've documented things appropriately, you've been professional in your communications, if you do have to escalate it to the next level, that's very helpful for those of us who have to serve as the mediators to navigate that situation. So the actual learning part. Seems like this should be the bulk of it, but everybody's so different in how they learn. I just have some general tips here. First off, if you're doing live lectures, if you're part of live lectures, turn your camera on. I know we all hate it. We don't want our face big on the Zoom screen and that kind of stuff, but there is accountability when you have your camera on, and I highly recommend that you keep that camera on. It'll help you stay focused and hold you accountable to pay attention in class. And paying attention in class and using the chat features and that kind of stuff, Microsoft Messenger was a big thing when I was in law school back in the day, and we were all on our laptops chatting the entire time. So not much has changed in that department, but it's some self monitoring that you have to do here, and make sure that you're as engaged as possible for those classes that do have live lectures. I always recommend to my students to lecture to each other. So if you just had a lecture in property law and a concept is eluding you, try teaching it to your fellow students, your study groups, your friends. You can do this live. You could do a Zoom call and try to lecture, or you can do a video and upload it to YouTube and do have your fellow students watch it and give you feedback. The best way to learn something is to teach it, and lecturing to each other can be very helpful. Quiz each other in fun ways. Kahoot, Quizlet, there's a million different programs that you can use. Later I will have a link to one of the websites that I use, given to me by one of our fraternity sisters. I stole her idea. I use it to create fun competitions in my class, and you can do that with your study groups and have a little bit of fun with it. Tech issues. If you are without internet access, your laptop breaks, there's just signal stinks and you can't get online, again, communicate. Your school most likely has resources to help you with this. Your student connections, your friends might have the ability to help you out with that. And reach out to your alumni chapters. There may be resources there where people can help you in the short term get through some of the hiccups technologically. Everyone has to adjust to their own learning style, but some of these tips can help you stay accountable and engage with each other and make sure that you're fully comprehending the material that has been shared with you. So I wanted to give a list of some of my favorite apps and websites that help me with focus and and staying on task, as well as some of the physical and mental health issues that we need to keep in mind when we're dealing with these challenges. These are all just personal favorites of mine. I don't necessarily endorse or support any particular one. I use the free options on all of these and have not found a need to pay for any of their upgrades, but some of them have some more bells and whistles if you do pay for their upgrades. The app that I showed a screenshot of earlier in the focus and motivation slide is called Focus Keeper. I live and die by this program, even before the online switch. This is something that really keeps me on task and keeps me focused, as well as make sure I'm taking my breaks as I need to, so that I don't burn myself out. I am a huge fan of meditation and mindfulness. Even sitting still for a couple minutes a day and giving yourself a moment to breathe and process can be just invaluable. Insight Timer is one of my favorites. It's got a ton of different styles. Stop, Breathe, Think is also a very good one. That one's a little more limited if you don't pay for it, but it is enjoyable. If you like to jog, and we'll talk about exercise here in just a minute, but I've recently started using an app called Torch. It gives you short 25-minute jog or run exercises, and you actually compete against someone and earn some prizes. It's just a nice little way to stay motivated. Sleep is super important, and again, we'll talk about that in a minute, but I don't know how you actually say this, but I say bzzz, probably saying it wrong, but this is one of my favorite apps for making sure I'm going to bed on time, staying consistent. Again, consistency, great app here. So for those of us who need to force ourselves to focus, in other words, lock down our browsers so we can't check Facebook or Instagram or anything like that, Freedom is one of my favorite website blockers. It has a nuclear option where you can't unlock your screen for a given amount of time, so use it wisely. But sometimes we just need to support ourselves in our structure, and website blockers can be great for that. This is the quiz/game site that I mentioned earlier, CrowdPer. You can create your own, or you can use their pre-done trivia games. So creating your own is great for studying, but sometimes we just need a break, and some of their quizzes are really fun. Kahoot is a very well-known quiz and flashcard creating website. I use it in a lot of my classes, and you may find it helpful for studying. And then don't forget to take some time to read for fun as well. It's really easy to stick your nose in all your law books and forget that sometimes you have to let your brain have some creativity. My personal favorite app is Overdrive. As long as you have a library card from any library that's on the system, you can get free audio and ebooks, and I love it. My university, if you have a university library card, my university's on it. Through the Navy Reserves, they have a library. So there's a ton of different options, and it's free books, free audio, and free ebooks, so you don't have to pay for Audible or anything like that. So Overdrive, highly recommend it. So I'm going to talk about some tips that we've all heard, but I really, really believe they help, particularly in this situation. I know everybody's probably sick of hearing it, but get some exercise. Exercise doesn't have to necessarily be anything strenuous. Go for a walk, do a couple push-ups in the morning. I am a yoga fan. I love doing yoga, even gentle stretching. Make sure your body is moving. And getting some activity every single day. When and where it's possible, and I know this isn't possible for every day and every location, but try to get some sun. Get that light on your skin. And days are rainy, and some of us live in cold places, and that's not always possible, but getting light is very important, and light other than our light bulbs in our kitchen or our dining room. Get some sun when you can. I swear by paper calendars and planners, and it doesn't have to be anything fancy. You can get a white piece of paper and draw lines on it and map out your day. You can see a quick screenshot of what my book looks like. As you can see in the top, there's the yellow highlighted area. That's my Eat the Frog task. And then I've got my 2 other big tasks. And then I can map out my schedule from there as well. There are study after study that shows the importance of physically writing on a piece of paper and how that can help you stay motivated, focused, and absorb information better. Sleep. You have to sleep. None of us can go long without good, high quality sleep. Make sure your structure, your schedule includes ample time for sleeping. And this includes giving yourself a little bit of time to shut down at night, meaning put that phone down, get your nose out of your laptop, give your brain a chance to recharge. There, again, study after study shows that sleep is when your brain cleans itself out and organizes all the stuff that you stuffed into it that day. So make sure you're getting sleep. Eat. You have to get calories. That's something that's either very easy to overdo or underdo right now. But I find people more often than not are struggling to get enough high quality calories. And the better you eat, the better you're going to feel. And then I practice gratitude every day. I believe it's very important. And in fact, if you look back on the screenshot that's here, my daily planner has an area for 3 areas of gratitude. And I do that every morning. And then at night, I have a different journal where I write a sentence of one thing that I'm particularly grateful for that day. This is a rough time, and we need to make sure we're counting our blessings when we can. And writing down what you're grateful for can really, really helpfully impact that. Again, a lot of these are very cliche. We've all heard them, but they really are important, and they're the building blocks to success. So some final thoughts, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. We are all in this together. We're all learning a lot of different things about how this all goes down, and we're here for each other. Try to have grace with your professors, your fellow students, and most importantly, yourself. Take care of yourself. Be gentle to yourself, your professors, and your fellow students, and we'll get through this together. Reach out to the fraternity if we can help you with anything. Remember, you have a network here to support you, and if we don't have the answer, we will find it for you. And finally, if you want more info, you like what you heard, but you want to grow it, or you just need an ear to complain to or vent to, or you want to discuss how you might handle a particular challenging professor, please feel free to reach out to me. This is my email address. My phone number is there. I will warn you, please text me before you call, because if you just call me, the likelihood is I'm not going to answer the phone. And I'm happy to Zoom, WebEx, Facebook chat, you name it. I will find time and location to talk to you. Thank you very much. I hope this was helpful, and I look forward to hearing from you if you need assistance.